So when you go out and you start your company, the first thing that you start looking for are like-minded people. Like-minded people who are going to share your passion for your technology, have an understanding of the industry that you're going into, and certainly, can act as mentors and potentially angel investors in your early stage startups. Most of these people are going to be from different industries, but they have a link. In my case, I had a lot of people in my first company who had connections to the Massey Cancer Center, so they already were involved as board members, trustees, and certainly investors. So they had a wanton desire to see the unmet medical need of cancer come to an end. And one of the things that we were looking at was saying, okay, well, we've got this great idea, but we're in an area of Richmond, Virginia that has very few people who understand biotechnology. How do you bring those people in? How do you repatriate talent and capital so that you can build your team effectively? So the mentors, investors are certainly going to be some of your primary people to start going out and talking to as you start to build your team, because they're going to bring a world of experience to you. And it's experience that you may not have as either a young student or even as a faculty member. Next is you start looking at your service providers, your accountants, your lawyers, and in my industry, consultants on clinical trials and regulatory. You start to really see the complexity of the organizations that you have to put together. And one of the things that we really did well at the Biomedical Strategy Group at PricewaterhouseCoopers was really think about quality by design. How even before you start doing the prototyping and understanding the technology, how do you understand what is the problem that you're going to address? So with Nemocor, Vladimir and I see that there are a lot of great drugs out there, but they're delivered in just some of the worst ways. And so some of the things that we want to accomplish is taking those great drugs, have great mechanisms of actions, that have poor therapeutic indexes, and change those therapeutic indexes so that they're more effective in the patients, they're safer for the patients, and the quality of life, because of those two attributes for the patients, actually increases. So quality by design really starts to think about who's going to be the end user, and then brings you all the way back through understanding what's going to have to happen in marketing, what's going to have to happen at the regulatory level, what's going to have to happen at manufacturing level, all the way through, so that when you pick up that pipette in my industry, right, to do those very first seminal experiments, you understand where you're going, what your trajectory is going to be. So bringing service providers on, even as consultants, and handing out a little bit of equity here and there, certainly at the outset of any young biomedical company, is going to be important, because it's a complex environment, and I'll take you through some of the complexities. And then you have your management team. Now your management team, as an entrepreneur, your management team is always going to be in flux. It's always going to be in flux. Your startup team, you may bring some friends on. I know when I started BioCash, which was the cancer vaccine company that I started right out of graduate school, I brought some people on. They were my friends, they were trusted confidants. We went so far with them. Wasn't it sad? But you can only go so far, because where they've been in their life is only so far. So you have to have the courage to understand that as the startup CEO, as the person who's gone out and found the investors for the company and sold them on this idea, that you've got to be able to make critical decisions on personnel. And your management team, it's only going to take you so far before sometimes those experiences from other people are going to be more value producing to you than the people you started with. And so sometimes you do have to fire your friends. Unfortunately, it happens. But if you do it the right way, you really get a good understanding of how good the friendship was, first of all. But you also, you really get, your investors to trust you. Okay, because now they're going to see that, you are acting on their benefit, and that's what they expects you to do since you have the fiduciary duty to really build value with their investing dollars. Oops. So the management team. So now you've gone out, you've raised some money from some angels, or you've started to think about raising some money from some angels or some investors. You have to think about your management team and what skill sets you're going to bring to bear on the problems. Diversity is good business. This is very, conceptually to the quality by design model. This is it in its essence, all right? As a consultant at PwC, I did 14 projects over the past 3 years, and I've been on good teams and I've been on bad teams. And on the good teams, what happened was we really had a diversity of talents and skill sets. And those skill sets were from, maybe not only the industry, but from the accounting side or from the tax side, so that we could address really complex problems and solve those problems. The same thing happens with an entrepreneurial company. When you start an entrepreneurial company, you've got a vision of grandeur, okay? But you've got to put together a trajectory that's going to get you to either the level of grandeur or a little bit below it. And in doing so, you're going to need a lot of different people. So, with the company that Vladimir and I are working on, Nemacor, there's a part of the FDA regulation that allows you to get drugs passed is called a 505(b)(2). And what 505(b)(2) says in general is that you can take drugs that are already on the market, that are generics, and then change how they're delivered. Okay, and as long as you change how they're delivered so that they're actually more beneficial to the patient, the FDA will give you a shorter pathway to get into the marketplace. And so, Vladimir's a scientist. Vladimir can't help me with the agency to understand how we're going to put together those drugs, how we're going to put together those clinical trials, right? But I can take his passion for science and for the delivery of great drugs to patients and nucleate teams around that can. So one of the very first people we brought into Nemacor was Deb Norman. And Deb has 23 years of history as in the regulatory agency, and she's also an IP attorney, so she's a good double-edged sword for the team. But Deb could say, look at Tim, here are the things that you need if you want to fulfill your business mission, which is take the drugs, get a short pathway to market, and really get some products out to the marketplace in 3 to 6 years, compared to the normal process that would take 10 to 15 years. Here are the things that you have to be attuned to. And she goes through the list of things. Now that's something that Vladimir and I wouldn't have been privy to unless we brought her expertise into the fold. So then the other piece that Vladimir and I are privy to is, what are some of the things that Big Pharma are doing right now to create new drugs? Okay, and what are some of the things that they're failing? And so we brought another gentleman into the fold. His name's Rod Cole. And Rod's his official title is Vice President of Drug Metabolism and Pharmacokinetics. And what he really understands is once you put a drug into the body, how long does it stay there? Where does it go? And does it go to the right places? And that's the big thing. If it goes to the wrong places, then you get toxicities and all hell breaks loose, and FDA doesn't want to see you next week. So, really bringing Rod on board lets us understand from the pharmaceutical side of the world, how do they view this problem, and how can we take the technology that Vladimir and I see as being very compelling and convince large pharmaceutical companies that for your next generation products, this is a compelling way to think about creating great products.